back-ish.
Look who it is, Sherrod. Look who decided to join us.
Listen, we love winners. Everyone loves winners.
We do.
And the Celtics, they're kind of winning now.
I wanted to be on last night's show. I still can't talk. You can hear it
Oh
now.
wow, you're really trying to sell this.
Milking it. I got the tea.
Yeah, you're really milking it. Yeah, is that why it took you so long to get on here? You warm up your tea.
I was making my tea. Black lung pop.
I got the black lung.
You'll hear it. I'm already Peter Brady right now to start the show.
Good. You can't get too fired up then.
I know, but I can't get fired up, which is good because this is a mellow game. I'll let you guys get fired up. There's not much to get fired up about, but these
Here
games.
You go. Get fired up about this. Brown played better than Tatum. Don't at me. That's
wait, what? Oh, that's from last game. Okay.
Who knows?
Don't at him. Don't at him.
I don't know how to at anybody.
Well, good.
From here, from this show. But these games could go wrong, right? I mean, when you're shorthanded, you're missing your two bigs. It could get ugly. Utah got a ton of easy baskets down low. Yeah. Didn't matter. Hung in there. Tatum, ridiculously efficient game. Brogdon was great. It didn't even matter that Smart and Brown weren't great. You got the Blake energy game. Plenty to talk about. Bobby's going to want to come in here and talk about how Blake needs minutes every night.
No,
no, I'm with Bobby.
No,
I'm with
no,
Bobby.
I'm not. No, stop.
Save it for Bobby.
Listen,
Save it for
Bobby. Jimmy, don't upset me.
I want to lose
by
John's
those
voice
5 amazingly awesome minutes that we got out of Blake. Don't be seduced by that. You're not going to get that if you play.
Consider me seduced.
Jimmy, there's this thing called diminishing returns. And
I'm easy,
Blake,
Sherrod.
right now, this was the sweet spot. This was the sweet spot minute-wise for Blake. Perfect, and it was a perfect storm. A Utah team that sort of kind of had big, but they really weren't bigs. I mean, Kelly is like a big, but he's not really a big.
But they're active.
And so is Blake.
Right.
And that's why this was a perfect storm. Most of the bigs that the Celtics are going to be facing are a little bit closer in terms of mobility to the Joel Embiids of the world than they are to the Kelly Olynyk. Yeah. And so that's why, to me, Blake was great in this particular matchup. I don't want to see Blake when they're playing, for example, if they're playing the Miami Heat and he's got to deal with, they're big. I don't want to see that because I don't think that's a movie that's not going to end well for the Celtics.
You know why I do want to see Blake in that series, Sherrod? I'll tell you why. Because the Heat bully the Celtics, and they're tough and they have a lot of energy. And Blake Griffin is the type of guy that won't take your shit. He'll stand in there, take a charge, but he'll fight back. He'll be tough. I think his energy is contagious. And I think the guys on the team, love Blake. So when they see him putting his body on the line and going all out, that's what I want to see out there from everybody. Not just him, but I just think that when he's out there, he kind of brings that out of the other guys. I'm not saying give him 25 minutes a game or anything close to that, but I do think he has a positive effect on this team when he's out there.
I think it's positive. Go ahead, John.
I'm just going to say, I feel like Blake's a deep cut. We're jumping in really early here.
It is a deep cut, but you started it, John.
I know. It's my fault.
Damn it!
This is a Friday night. Anything goes, order we want.
It is. You're right. But let me.
You know what? I'm hosting. Get out of the host here. You can't even talk.
I'm terrible. Get
out of here.
I'm gonna set up some topics, and I'm gonna drop back. I'm gonna sip my tea, and I'm gonna take the sympathy. For those of you out there, you don't know, sign up. I tried to do a same game parlay today. I couldn't do it because nobody knew who was gonna play. Okay. So I was trying to do that same game parlay to load up on Hauser and White, but FanDuel's smart like that. They were waiting to see who was playing too, so none of those guys were on the board. But if you're interested in this, go sign up, FanDuel.com/Boston. You see that little right there?
What? The QR code.
Oh, the QR code?
QR code. You can just hit that right there. It's going to take you right to our link.
I hope that.
Yeah, Jimmy. That's how it works.
It actually says live over it.
It glows when you do it. You can see a flash. It's pretty cool.
You could just type in FanDuel.com.
Yeah, but you should see it. You do it, and that thing's going to go bing.
Well, let's find out right now.
Bet five. Get 200 in bonus bucks right away. We'll get to Blake, no doubt about it.
It's not working.
We'll get to Blake.
We'll get to Blake.
So when Jason Tatum had a bad February, right? Everyone was like, you know what, though? March is when he goes off, right? And we're waiting for one of those Tatum runs. You went through almost all of March and it didn't happen. But last 2 games, it's happening, right? Like, it's insane. You're talking a 40 and 39. He scored 79 points on 35 shots, 2.3 points per shot he's averaging right now. He's on, again, it's 2 games. He's on a heater. Better late than never, right? You didn't get it, or you didn't get it when you thought you were going to get it. But, I mean, what he's doing right now is insane. Like, if you get anything close to this version of Tatum heading into the playoffs,
right,
you know, a game-changing sort of thing. So it's like, I'll ask you guys, is this the beginning of that kind of heater that we haven't seen from him all year? Despite the fact he's scoring 30, that's what's amazing about his season. It also shows his overall efficiency has been a little better in the sense that he's missing threes, but he's getting to the line, and he's still getting his 30. How many games this year where we're like, wow, he didn't even have a good game. He ended up with 31 points. How did that happen, you know? So he's been grinding for it, but he hasn't had that, like, I'm unguardable stretch where it's just, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to score every time I touch the ball. And he's had it the last 2 nights.
Well, he's due.
Yeah.
I mean, the shots that he's taking now and making aren't that different than the ones he wasn't making earlier. And so that's to me, that's the sign of a good shooter. They're going to keep doing what they do because they know their mechanics, their routine, their rhythm. It's going to come about sooner or later. And the thing that I like about Tatum now is we talk about his 3-point shooting, which has been significantly better the last couple of games. Yeah. But he's also figuring out ways to get baskets around the rim. He has to do that. That has to be part of the scoring package that he brings
Somebody
to the table.
Get Jimmy a friggin' Marlboro right now.
I wasn't going to get into Jimmy and yeah.
You don't have to. Let's let it go.
I was just going to let it slide, Jimmy, because you let it go.
This is my ski. This is my après ski.
Oh, that is so
shirt,
not ski. That's like, you know, bareback on, you know, trigger.
Well. This is what I rock. This is how I roll, baby. This is Friday night gym, so you guys are gonna have to learn to love it, I guess.
Okay.
Just be careful, because the later it goes, these buttons start to come undone. So let's get into it.
That's scary.
Once 11 o'clock comes around, we don't know.
All right.
We just don't know.
Sherrod was saying intelligent basketball-related stuff until Jimmy unbuttoned his top button.
I didn't unbutton it. I just opened it a bit. Let me just piggyback off what Sherrod said for a second. To answer your question, John, yeah, of course, if this is the Jason Tatum that we're about to get for the playoffs, then
ding.
Everybody should go to FanDuel.com/Boston right now and bet on Celtics to win the NBA championship with your 200 bonus bets.
I'm surprised they didn't flop ahead of the Bucks on odds after last game. Because, like,
yeah, that's a good point.
Bucks were playing better, and obviously the slight betting favorite over the Celtics because of the home court and obviously recency bias. They've been playing better. Celtics have been more inconsistent, but after that shellacking, man, I think people have to reconsider that.
Well,
I think money's going to come flooding in on the Celtics because
you know the other thing too,
you
John?
Remember what you just saw.
Right. I mean, you got the recency bias, but you also had 3 games that the Celtics played against them, and the Celtics should have won all 3.
That's the thing. That's the crazy thing.
The Celtics literally had that Milwaukee Bucks ass beat with their B team in Milwaukee. And they just gave it away at the very end. So and they handed them the worst loss in the franchise in their matchups ever. Just the other night.
So let me ask you guys:
if you could eliminate late game Milwaukee Grant Williams and then late game Cleveland Grant Williams, Celtics would be the 1 seed right now.
Locked up.
What does Vegas know then? I mean, because they're not idiots. They're typically more right.
Well, I think they don't trust the Celtics because we've seen this. We've seen this movie before. And they look great. They look great. They look great. And then all of a sudden, wait a minute. They just lost to Orlando. Wait a minute. They just lost to Houston. Wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
What are you doing?
What are you doing? Yeah. Exactly.
I also think we mentioned it briefly, Sherrod, because we didn't want to rain on last night's parade, but that was a borderline schedule loss for Milwaukee. Second out of a back-to-back. Coming back from the road the night before after a pretty hard-fought game where Drew Holiday dropped 50, and he
went from 51 to 6.
Yeah, he barely made it into the arena last night.
He had 6 more points against the Celtics than I did, and you did. Then us combined.
Combined, yeah.
Never happened.
I think maybe that has a little something to do with it, but I think it should be. I don't know what the odds are right now, John, and I know we're not getting into gambling here, but I imagine it's pretty close because I think if you ended up with these two teams in a 7-game series Eastern Conference Finals, I don't think there's a clear cut. Oh, this team's going to roll over the other team. I think it would go pretty deep into that series.
I think it's going to be so close to being a push because Milwaukee will likely have home court advantage. But then if you start looking at the 3 games they played this year, you can't really feel good about that because Celtics won 2 out of the 3, and when they didn't win, late game meltdown with your B team was why you didn't win that game.
Yeah, and that's the thing is you talk about the Celtics, like when you look at the losses to bad teams, they like if you eliminate, that's what drives you nuts is like, guys, if you were serious right now, you're the 1 seed, and that's what kind of drives people nuts. Like the Wizards game, justifiably, was just such a, such a bad game because you're just punting away. You're undoing other effort, okay, that you have there. But if you just look at games against Phil, they have 2 games. The one against Milwaukee, where their entire B team was about to win that game and they mucked it at the end. And then you beat Philly with your B team one time. That's the game Jalen broke his face. I think Tatum's the only one that played. He had 12 points that game, and you were without everyone else. No Smart, no Brogdon, no Rob, whatever. No bigs that game. and you won. You remember that one? Where like, man, if you're Philly, you got to be like,
yeah,
we're toast, man. So you're Philly, Milwaukee right now. You might be like, okay, we've been playing good, but just if you think about how the Celtics have played you in these games, you've got to feel pretty shitty if you're them, right?
Yeah,
you got to be nervous. I mean, imagine a Milwaukee
to an extent, but
if Milwaukee had any like people, I was curious to read what the Milwaukee papers and stuff were writing about the game, and it turns out there are no Milwaukee papers.
The Sentinel, right?
No, there is, but there was no in-depth.
Yeah, right.
There was no in-depth analysis. It was just like an AP, right? I wanted to see.
It was Chat GPT.
I wanted to hear the gloom and doom, like, oh, we are effed, So I didn't really get a taste of that, but man, you just got smoked. I mean, smoked.
Right.
And those 3 games, that 3-game snapshot's not pretty.
No. And yeah, I mean, the one game that you won, their B team had you on your back. Basically you needed a late, I mean, if it were a boxing match, you were totally getting outpointed and you just knocked them out in the last round. That's how you got the win. So that's,
but how much are we putting into that regular season? I mean, how many of those were Middleton?
Well, I'm looking more at the personnel. Personnel because if when I look, because I went back and I looked at just a bunch of different plays from the Milwaukee game, and there are some clear adjustments that even Bud is going to realize he has to make. One of the biggest is you can't play Jay Crowder against these guys. You can't play Jay Crowder.
He was getting toasted.
He's cemented to the ground.
He looked like a guy who sat around for a majority of the season. You can't do that. You just can't do that.
Well, he looks worse than that because usually that guy will go through like 2 or 3 weeks of conditioning to where when he gets on the floor, he may not be making shots, but he's not looking like a walking easy pass that everybody is just,
unplayable.
Tatum, Brown,
you know what?
White, everyone on the Celtics who had the ball in their hands against Milwaukee, when they got the matchup with Jay Crowder, pew, straight to the cup.
Yeah.
And they were doing that to Ingles too.
So that's the biggest thing, I think. I totally agree with you guys. Looking back at that game, I mean, when did it change, right? It's about a point-per-point kind of, slugfest. And again, that stuff's going to happen to a team playing the second night of a back-to-back. And I'm sure you guys talked about this a great deal. But where you really, 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 really see that separation is when you got into that bench unit and you're like, who's Milwaukee playing? And then you're playing a unit that has Rob coming off the bench with Brogdon and one of the Jays. And then who cares what you fill it with, Grant or Hauser? That starting lineup is an 8 seed in the East, And like, when Lopez comes off the floor, you could see the difference that Rob's able to make there. And then you're just looking at what they've got, and fine, it's Portis. He can get hot every once in a while, but the rest of that bench unit, oh my goodness, Crowder, like that is.
We were talking about the depth of each team last night, and both Sherrod and Josue say that the Celtics are deeper, even though they might not be deeper in numbers, but the talent that they have, like 6th, 7th, and 8th, are.
That's what I mean. Starting caliber players 1 through 8.
Yeah, that Milwaukee bench 4 years ago would have been great.
Starting caliber
like
players
awesome.
1 through 8.
Right,
and Milwaukee's bringing in the same problem the Celtics had last year.
Wes Matthews.
Same problem. They have the same problem the Celtics had last year. Is you're playing guys who are 7, 8, 9 guys as your 6, 7, 8 guys, and that's a huge problem. The Celtics have 8 starting caliber players that they throw at you. Big drop off there. So that depth is a massive issue there. And you've seen them; they can go cold. Giroux gets 51, but he's not a guy who lights it up every single night. So you really need Giannis to be like ridiculous, and then everybody to be hitting their threes on that team. And again, classic make-miss sort of game, but to a ridiculous degree in both directions. But again, I'd be nervous as hell if I'm Milwaukee.
Yeah, because if you think about it, Blake Griffin is probably the 7th or 8th man of Milwaukee right now. And at best, he's Boston's 9th, maybe 10th guy. And to me, that says more about the depth that they have, that he's that far down the pecking food chain than anything else. Because I mean, obviously, if Blake's going to play 10 minutes, you're going to get 10 really good minutes. Yeah. But again, the longer he's out there, the more diminishing returns you're going to get on his production, because that's just where he's at this point in his career. Yeah. But Milwaukee's bench, again, I'm still trying to understand and figure out how the hell did they win all those damn games in a row. But to me, again, looking back at the game against Milwaukee, 2 things jump out. Jay Crowder you just can't play him. And Giannis has to be a little bit more aggressive from the outset. I thought that he was way too comfortable trying to get others involved. He can't be that guy against the Celtics, because the Celtics are just too good, and the guys around him, they can't respond appropriately, I think, in that situation, unless Drew is having one of those great games. Chris Middleton is another guy who looks like he's lost a step or two. And so, there's a reason why,
too, I think.
Yeah, that's the reason why he's dropped down to the number 3 in your big 3.
Middleton's a pro, but he has lost. He looks a little. He's like, I don't know if he's lost it forever, because I don't think he's old enough to completely have begun the decline. But the injuries sapped him this year. He's still slow to get it back, and he might not get it all the way back.
Remember,
this year.
We're not talking about a guy who was uber athletic from the jump.
Nope.
So that's why it's hard to discern whether it's just him still ramping his body back up, or whether he's taking a slight step back, which is more noticeable for him because of the lack of athleticism he has relative to other guys. Can still shoot the hell out of the ball, but he's not able to get the kind of space that we're used to seeing him get.
Yep. No doubt about it. And people are saying, why aren't you talking about Utah? Because it's friggin' Utah, buddy.
Okay, let's talk about Utah.
Walker Kessler. Do people really want to talk about Walker Kessler?
First off, I want to
talk about Chris Dunn getting punked by Blake Griffin.
I want to thank Catherine. We'll get into Blake. We'll get into the Chris Dunn, Jalen Brown.
You want to get into Dunn, Katie?
I don't want to get
the Dunn Brown matchup. That, by the way, is who Celtics wanted. We should remind you.
John, I remember, John, you and I had lots of conversations about that one. Oh boy,
we did. But that's who people wanted back then. I'm not sure where you were.
Wait,
you were
they
on
were
that
the same
one.
class?
Yeah.
Oh,
the Jalen Brown was booed because the consensus was at the time Celtics fans preferred Chris Dunn.
That's not true. That is not true.
What's not true?
They were booed because the Celtics fans originally wanted them to trade
the pick. But Dunn was rumored to be when they made the pick. Dunn was still rumored to be the guy that wherever Butler was playing at the time, the team
he was
wanted.
Like the local guy, so there was some local
the team
push
that
for him.
Butler, the team that Butler was on, who that pick could have been traded for. Dunn was supposedly the target, and when you didn't take Dunn, you took your own guy. They were like, "Oh my God, they're keeping the pick and they're keeping this guy." So it was kind of the double whammy. But Dunn was that kind of guy in there. Bender was also another guy who was assumed to be one of those picks. Dragon.
Yeah, Bender, he was the mysterious guy.
It's one of David's unicorns. He's one of those guys that plays good against chairs, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Darko 2.0. Yeah,
I think it's Jean Lin. That one. Remember he had that awesome workout against the chairs, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, look at that guy!"
Oh man, that was funny.
He could dribble
Didn't the
around
Bucks
chairs.
take him?
Yeah,
the Bucks took him.
Yeah,
sorry,
that didn't last long there.
Let me sneak this out while I still have voice left. Massachusetts, listen up. Wait is over. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, live in Massachusetts. New customers in Mass get in the action. $200 bonus bets when you place your first $5 bet. Sign up at FanDuel.com/Boston. Bet all your favorite sports and more, moneyline, point spreads, player props, same game parlays, whatever you have it. Dunks. Jimmy, don't distract me. How many dunks there are in the first few minutes of the game? It's one of Jimmy's favorites.
I'll be honest. I actually didn't get the bet in tonight, but there was a dunk at the 9:07 minute mark. That would have been an L for me.
Oh, I thought it was only 3 minutes.
Yeah, so from 12 to 9.
9:07. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, don't miss your chance to get in $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com/Boston. Please do that if you are going to sign up, because then they know we sent you. You got to be 21 or older and present in Massachusetts. $10 deposit required. Bonus is issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem, hope and help is here. Gambling helpline, ma.org, or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support. Guys, let's rewind a little bit. Do you believe that Washington loss was the final time the Celtics will ever allow something like that to happen to themselves?
No.
Like, do you believe they learned a lesson there? Like, God, what are we doing? Because the narrative off that game was twofold. One, you pissed away a good chance. Two, why are you telling me that you don't care about it? I think people got irked about the blasé attitude. Like, wait a second. On Sunday, you guys are screaming about, we want the 1 seed, we want the 1. Then you lost, and you're like, yeah, we didn't care anyway. And people are like, wait, what? You didn't care? We cared. Like, I thought you cared. Why didn't you care? And I thought that was an immature response to just basically, yeah, we shot ourselves in the foot. Like, own it. We sucked. We shot ourselves in the foot. We did want the 1 seed, but we didn't play like it tonight. That's on us. We probably pissed it away, and we're going to have to pay for it, you know? And they still might have to pay for it. But the way they responded, obviously against Milwaukee, I think they wanted to send a message, not just to the Bucks that, like, doesn't matter where we play you guys, dog, we're going to do what we're going to do. But also I think to themselves that, like, we can't do that again. But do you still think that that's the thing? That's the only thing that worries Celtics fans, I think, is games like Washington, where you don't show up, you don't put in the effort on the defensive end. You just show up thinking shots are going to fall and we'll be fine. They don't fall. You're not getting stops. Other teams getting easy buckets. You fall behind. You try to shoot your way out of it instead of play defense and grind, and you piss the game away. We've seen it happen in the playoffs and at critical stages. That Jekyll and Hyde identity, even though it only rears its head every so often, I think is still the only thing that kind of holds people back from going all in. Because again, talent alone, depth of the lineup, you don't see anybody in the NBA that they shouldn't be able to beat when they're playing their top game, focused defense and offense. But that's the thing. That's the thing that cursed child, the thing that just comes up and you're like, oh. So, I mean, what do you guys think? Do you think that Washington game is it, or we're going to see it again?
We're going to see it again. We're going to see it again. I until they show that I can trust them, I'm not going to trust them to learn their lessons from this guy. And, they've got 2 cracks at Toronto, a team that they could potentially see in the first round. And I would not be surprised if they crap one of those games away. Toronto's got some talent on that team, but Boston's a better team. And Boston should be able to win both of those games. I wouldn't be surprised if they split them. And that, for me, is why, as much as I want to be all in on these guys winning it all, they don't show that intangible that makes me comfortable that this is going to be an issue. Because let's just go back to the Milwaukee game, and you listen to what Drew Holiday had to say after the game. You listen to what Giannis. I mean, they basically said that when you play the way we did, this is what happens. You get your ass kicked, point blank. There were no excuse. They weren't talking about the fact that they played the night before. They weren't talking about being late and in traffic and all these other just lame ass excuses for stuff not going your way. They just didn't play well, and it got absolutely destroyed. The Celtics need to, first and foremost, own up to the fact that you're going to have nights like that, and when it does, you need to have some type of visceral reaction afterwards. And for them, it was to go out there and beat the crap out of Milwaukee, and that's great. But it's not always going to be that easy. Because that Milwaukee game was a perfect storm for them. They were pissed that they lost to Washington. Milwaukee was coming off an amazing game where so many guys stepped up the night before, but Indiana made them grind a little bit there in the second half. And it was a perfect storm to just have one of your best games. Milwaukee had one of the worst games. You get a 41-point win. That's not going to be the scenario night in, night out. They need to get to that point where when they suffer a setback, you don't dwell on the fact that it's not a big deal, because it should be a big deal. Every game at this point should be a freaking big deal. I don't like how dismissive they are when they lose. That's champions get pissed when they lose, even when they win by like 3 or 4. They don't like that, especially if it's a team that they should have beat by 40. And they need to get to the point where, win or losing, they need to, when they don't play well, own the fact that you didn't play well and get pissed about it and play better.
So, Sherrod, I agree with basically everything you said in terms of why I don't trust this team. I've said in the last couple weeks I have trust issues when it comes to the Celtics. Where I not disagree, but where I think why we might not see it again is because there's just not enough time left in the year. They don't play any cupcake teams the rest of the way. They've got Philly on Tuesday. They're obviously, they got to show up for that one. That's their next game. They've got a couple of days off, and that's a huge game. That's a possible playoff preview. And you want to beat them to kind of ensure that you're going to stay in that number 2 seed, because there's still an outside chance they could lose the number 2. There's enough games left, and they're not far enough away from Philly. So you go all in against Philly. Then you've got 3 games left, 2 against Toronto, 1 against Atlanta. Depending on how things go with the Bucks over the next couple of games,
all 3 of those teams you can see in the playoffs. You're right.
Yeah, so they're not going to not show up, but also there could be a situation where it might not matter. Like Atlanta might not matter seeding wise. Maybe game 2 of Toronto doesn't matter seeding wise. So that's the only reason why I'm not like that concerned about the next week or so. And then you have the playoffs, and like, well, if you don't show, there's no excuse for just not showing. Like, you just literally cannot use that excuse that we didn't take our opponent seriously. So. Unfortunately, their last test to take a bad opponent seriously, they failed. But now it's like, what I'm interested in is, can they put together performances leading up to a couple more games where I can say, okay, these guys are finding the rhythm. Like Tatum, for example. It seems like he's really getting into a good rhythm going into the playoffs. We already know what Jalen Brown's been up to the last couple months. I'm more interested in seeing like what those guys are going to be doing leading up to the playoffs, as opposed to, are they going to collectively show up as a team? Because at this point, I think we're all just waiting for the next week of basketball to finish up. They got to win a couple games. They'll most likely end up as that 2 seed. Now, if Milwaukee loses to Philly on Sunday, things get very interesting, and they should be going all out regardless. So that's the only reason why I don't think we're going to see them just like sort of flounder at all, because there's just no excuse to. When you look at the schedule, there's just not enough bad teams for them to. There's no bad teams really left to play.
Well, they're looking at a bunch of different playoff caliber type teams ahead, and they've had success against all of them. I mean, they've owned Philadelphia. We know that. They haven't really played Toronto enough to get a feel for that. But that Toronto is just basically trying to avoid the playing game at this point. Atlanta is probably the team that most want to see in the first round, just because of the way their season is gone. Mm-hmm. The look at that roster. But I still
they can't predict that. They that's out of their hands.
Right. I just don't trust these guys, though. I just don't. And my biggest fear, honestly, Jimmy, is they may do just enough to take these guys serious for the rest of the regular season. But if they draw Atlanta first round, and are you comfortable and confident that they're not going to have a letdown game against the Hawks in the playoffs?
No, and that's where I agree with you. This team has not shown me enough where I think that they're killers.
I just go back. Yeah, I mean, Jimmy,
like on a consistent basis,
right? Because I just go back to what Joe Mazzulla has said time and time again about developing good habits, and part of that is putting teams away when you have an opportunity to not only win the game but also progress yourself in terms of standings. They have not done as good a job at that as they should have, and they've got a chance to finish this thing out strong against teams that they're all beatable, and other than Philly, are all going to be at your place.
And that's the thing about it. And that's why in the NBA, it's a 7-game series. So they can probably think, well, we can afford to have a stinker, right? This team's going to have to beat us 3 more times after that. So that's why, even though I'm saying I don't, quote unquote, trust the Celtics, I still believe that they're going to advance in the series. But for John to ask the question, do you ever expect to see a game like that again? Yeah, I would expect to see it at some point. I would still be disappointed, obviously. And I'm not saying it's definitely going to happen, but I wouldn't be shocked if we saw a game where it just felt like, for whatever reason, whatever outside factor, traffic, the moon, whatever it is, affected them prior to the game. So that's all I'm saying. I still expect them to get out of the first round and get out of the second round. I'm not making any predictions about the Bucks series yet.
That's the thing is, I mean, even at my most apoplectic or like the harshest criticism. I've been maintaining the same thing. I still think they waltz into the conference finals because I just don't believe any team that they'll face, even if the Celtics have one or two mail-it-in games in the series, can beat them over 7. I just don't see it.
It's
Bucks,
just, but that's
Bucks
how you
game is
drain
harder
yourself,
because
though.
the Bucks. But the bad habits, like when you get deeper, you can't have those games against teams.
You can't afford
it. So against the Bucks, the margin for error changes because when they play hard, they make life hard for you. And when things don't come easy for you, can you, man up and battle through it when the lane gets really clogged, when the threes aren't falling, when Giannis, when there's the fouls are getting called on you and you're getting frustrated, can you keep it together there? And that's the question. But through 2 rounds, I just don't see it being a problem. It's just going to get a problem if you're trying to reach your ultimate
Philly's
goal.
Going to play
and you have a very clear goal, and that's legit to win it all. So I mean, almost I've never really understood fan sensitivity regarding the Celtics. Nobody is saying they're not good. It's win the championship or the season was not a failure, but a disappointment. You're the championship favorite to begin the year. You played half the year like it. You are still going to enter the playoffs as the 1 or the 2 favorite to win everything. Not winning the championship is a massive disappointment if you're a Celtics fan. It doesn't mean they suck, but this is a championship season. So the standard is ridiculously high. And that's why they get scrutinized and picked apart. It's not because people hate them. It's you're supposed to be winning it all, dudes. Get there and do it and act like it. Be that championship team. Step it up, evolve, have those games get past those games and get tough. We've seen periods of the year they've done it. We've seen obviously ones they haven't. So again, that's always the, can you love again, Jimmy? Can you trust? Right. Will you trust them coming in,
But the thing with this team, though, is that I
open my heart back up.
Different. You and that shirt, Jimmy, opening your heart back up. Can't get over it.
My shirt back up.
But here's the thing. Last year, that team was built to compete with the best teams. This team was built to win it all. They had 2 glaring weaknesses last year. They didn't have someone coming off the bench who could score from the perimeter, and they needed another stretch big. And they addressed those, obviously, things that haven't worked out the way they wanted to with Danilo. But nonetheless, this team was built.
This guy just doesn't get it. You lead the league in not getting it, man. I love you, but
he leads the league in hating.
It's just constant contrary. You just don't get it.
He's screaming at his streaming device, whatever it is, for an hour for sure.
Yeah. Go ahead, Sherrod.
No, but I again, this team was built to win a championship, and if they don't, then it's going to be a disappointment. Whereas last year, they were just realistically, they were happy to be there because they were not the favorite to be there. They just played their way into that role. This year, they began the season as the hunted, the team that everyone was gunning for. One guy that has been a big part of that success in this year is Jalen Brown. Tonight was probably the worst game Jalen has had in like a month. He looked bad. To be candid, I thought he looked tired. This was one of the few games I've seen where he looked fatigued. You look at a lot of those shots that he missed, they came up short. And we all know that when shots typically come up short consistently for a guy who's been making a ton of them, it's usually tired legs. Are you the one of you concerned about Jalen?
Am I concerned about Jalen? I don't know. John, you answer that since you're so busy.
I'm not concerned about Jalen. It's not. Based off of I just want
to make sure he gets enough rest going into the playoffs. That's all. That's my concern.
I'm not concerned. He's been their most consistent.
He's been so consistent.
I got to save my concern for other people. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I can only be concerned so much. And he's also showed up in the big spots in the playoffs too.
Here's the thing.
So I have no reason to
need to rest, Sherrod, because you've got that big stretch.
Into the regular season to before you're right.
So, like I said,
but you don't want to risk injury, John. That's more what it.
Look, you want to load manage some. Once it's definitively clear that you're out on the 1, but the 2 is secure, you really don't want to fall to 3. So you got to play at least to lock up the 2. Probably serious through Tuesday's game. You win Tuesday's game, alternate between Tatum and Brown, shut it down.
Right.
Play them halves I think that's always a good play. Go out there to stay warm, stay loose, play a half, and then you're done. That's always take an entire day off as well. I think that's fine. I think you're okay there. But other than that, I'm not sure. I mean, they're 26, and I mean they're kind of built for this. Missoula killed them throughout the course of the year, but I think you can ramp it down here in the last couple of weeks and make up for it a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Again, it just they're not going to put their 2 seed in jeopardy of becoming a 3, and if the 1 is there, they're going to go for it. But
you guys are gonna make them leave.
I'm bracing for that that blame. That video. When we go live, when we do an emergency garden report.
Oh yeah, that's all on you, Jimmy.
Wear your Kevlar.
Tell you guys really quick, AG1. Someone just mentioned it that we're, so I figured I'd bring it up here. Please check out
AG1. I don't know if John's been taking it.
Maybe that's my problem.
That might be it. I'm feeling
Judah
great.
Wants to know dosage. Judah, I'll tell you what year the garden report started in a little bit. After this one, we'll do a little garden report history because Jimmy Toscano's part of it. But check out Athletic Greens if you are interested in being healthy all the time, because that's what it does for you, right?
Exactly.
That is what it does to you. 75 vitamins, minerals, nutrients, adaptogens, prebiotics, probiotics, little mushroom complex. Just pop it in the morning into about 8 ounces of cold water, and down the hatch you go, and you're off on your way. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to wake up. It's the first thing I'm going to do before I hit the gym. And you know what? Sunday, it's the first thing I'm going to do. So it gives you a little bit of routine in the morning.
What does it do? What does it do for you, Jimmy? What are some of the things it does? I've heard supports gut health, nervous system, immune system, energy, recovery, focused aging. It doesn't help you adaptogen.
Yeah, but you just
got to say that.
Jimmy just totally flunked the pop quiz, John.
But again, Athletic Greens, adaptogens.
There it is.
athleticgreens.com/garden. Take care of that. There's good offers out there right now, and you will get the presents that you see there. 1 year supply vitamin D5 free travel packs. And also, we're still shipping these things out hot off the presses, Garden Report t-shirts that we're sending them out to you.
Those
if you
things
support
are nice.
Our sponsor here, we will happily send that out to you. Judah asked,
and like I said before, real quick, what I said before is with the subscription, you can cater the subscription to fit how often you're going to use it. So if you don't think you're going to use it every 30 days, you can get it once every 60 days. So you can cut the price in half in that sense.
Judah asked how long the Garden Report's been going on. The Garden Report has taken on different shapes over the years.
That's true.
The Garden Report used to be the reporting that would be done by CLNS media members who would attend games, who would do some, who would tape a few segments after the game and then put those out. And they used to involve people like Jimmy Toscano, Nick Gelso, obviously, Kevin O'Connor, Jared Weiss were on it. Over the years, it involved other people as well, Mike Petralia, Chris Grenham, lots of different other faces. Jacob Toby, sports anchor out in Denver right now. Jacob was great.
Guy.
Sierra Goodwill. Yeah, I said Trags. Oh, okay. So that's what it was. And then during the bubble, we decided, well, we can't go anywhere, so let's just make the Garden Report a remote post-game show following every game and incorporate the people who go cover the games when they are finally allowed to do so again. So it became a little, let's just do this from home.
And then we did it live.
And we did it live because we like hanging out with you guys as much as you hate us, which is fine.
And because we just needed human interaction more than anything. Because it was the peak.
We did.
We were lonely. We were lonely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some of us still
are.
Come on, Jimmy. Stop.
Anyway, so that's what we did. And now we're here. We're doing it regular. We're hanging out with you guys. So it is a lot of fun. Let's get into let's ride the Blake hype train here. Let's hop on. Here's Joe talking about Blake and kind of like.
You're not allowed to say nice things about Blake, but we are.
Okay.
Go on.
I'm consistent.
You're a hater, but go on.
Once every 5-6 games, break glass in case of emergency. Pull out your Blake.
I think Sherrod's a hater too, if I recall. But go on, everybody.
This one's for Jimmy. This is Joe telling Blake how he loved him.
I knew what I was going to get tonight. I trusted our guys, and I knew we were going to be really competitive. I knew we were going to put ourselves in position to win the game. I could just sense it from our guys. And because we've been in that situation before where we didn't respond, and so I know our team was ready to do that. And then, it was about by any means necessary. So we changed up sub-patterns. We, for the first time in a long time, went without Jalen and Jason in the game, and we just did whatever we had to do to win the game. And guys stepped up and made plays. But I'm not going to tell you I thought we were going to win, but I knew we were going to be highly competitive.
That one wasn't about Blake, but this one might be. Yeah.
Nice.
I'll try a different one. But that's actually pretty. No, that was a pretty honest answer.
That was just about the team in general showing up to play.
Yeah,
I don't think either of these are about Blake. I think it's false advertising. I'm looking at the descriptions, but this one might be. Let's try it. Let's roll the dice. Let's see what Joe says here. I need to hear him say that he loves someone. Hold on.
Yeah, so I thought there was a chance we had that use it or lose it from like the 5-minute mark to the 3:31, but we were creating just enough chaos, and I thought it was important that we needed that. Like we needed something to enhance our focus and our energy for the last 5 minutes, and so I thought Blake provided that. Once we took the timeout, it was more about finishing the game. But Blake's in that category where anytime we call his name, he brings a physicality and a joy and an energy that feeds off our team, that our team feeds off of.
There's some Blake love, Jimmy.
There you go.
All right, I'll tee you up. You just take it and go where you want to go.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
Yeah, he lobbed it up for me. But it's true. I mean, I think we kind of said some of that stuff before we even knew that, probably before Joe had said it. If you see this team play, whenever Blake gets an opportunity to play, he goes all out. And this is a guy that he's been a superstar in this league for many, many years. He's made enough money to last many lifetimes over. And he's out there taking a one-year deal, diving for loose balls, taking unbelievable charges, including one that he didn't even get the benefit of the charge tonight, or I think was maybe the most contact I've seen in a charge all year. I mean, I forget who slammed into him, but Marcus Smart got called for a reach right before Blake took that charge. But that just goes to show the type of guy he is. He does whatever he can do to affect that game. And yeah, John, you're right. He's not going to play 30 minutes a game and score 20-plus points and rip down 15 boards. He's not going to jump through the roof like he used to. But when he's in the game, he has a positive effect on the game because guys, his effort is contagious. His attitude's contagious. Guys want to play for him and with him. And I think they see him going all out, knowing this is a guy that has all the accomplishments except for the accomplishment that he's looking for, right? But all the personal accolades he already has. But he's out there putting his body up, putting his body on the line, sacrificing for the greater good. And I hope that some of these younger guys see that as an example, and they want to go out there and do the same thing. So that's why I think he's important. And yeah, he can still have an effect on the sidelines, and I'm sure he does. He's not the type of guy that's going to sit at the end of the bench and pout about not playing. In fact, it's been the complete opposite. He's really embraced his role, and I think he doesn't get enough credit for that probably because and I texted you guys this, and I said, man, if this guy was on the Celtics a little bit earlier in his career, he would be like the ultimate fan favorite. He would be a superstar in this city, right? Just because I think his style of play and the way he approaches the game, I think a lot of fans gravitate to it.
But I think it's I was just going to say, but I think his style of play has evolved over time to where now he's I mean, like all these diving and hustle plays that he makes now, which are great for him at this point in his career for the Celtics right now. I don't think Blake was doing that when he was jumping over like Kias and doing chin-ups on the rim, when he was in La La Land. He just wasn't that player, and understandably so.
But his competitiveness was still there. It just showed up in different ways.
Competitiveness, I think, is shining through now because his athleticism isn't nearly as dominant. Remember, he was basically, Zion Williamson in many ways before Zion, this incredibly freakish athlete who plays above the rim, dunking on everybody. Mm-hmm. And because he was so athletically gifted, I think people overlook the fact that he is a genuine competitor. And we're seeing that now with the Celtics. But the thing I keep coming back to with Blake is that I love what he gives me in doses. I can't see that being something that I need every single night because sometimes you're just going to have to play your top 7, top 8 players talent-wise. And Blake is not that guy. He's not. So to me, he's that guy that's kind of like you've got your rotation, you've got your starters, you got your rotation, and then you've got the fringe guys that, you can throw into the rotation in certain matchups and other nights not. He's in that package. And tonight was the perfect storm for him. They needed to be a little bit more physical and stop letting Walker Kessler, just lay up and dunk at will at the rim, and Kelly Olynyk do what he does. Blake was a perfect physical player that they needed in this particular matchup, but that's not you're not going to need that from him every night. You're not going to need a player with those skills every night.
I'll split the difference between you. One, I agree with Sherrod. Like, obviously, everyone knows he's evolved. I mean, this is a guy who's jumping over friggin' cars, and just freakish, like an athlete and a dunker and a guy who played above the rim like almost no one, maybe Sean Kemp. I mean, I don't know, like, like stuff you didn't see, right? Like ridiculous. And just, it was his game. He would literally get it almost anywhere.
But he worked on his outside shot, though.
He evolved his game. What's interesting, though, he was actually known as kind of soft early, despite the guy who came in with this friggin' block physique, built like a truck, NBA-ready body the second he walked into the league. He wasn't. He actually kind of shrunk from some challenges. So to see him completely redefine himself, it's like the pitcher who lost a 98-mile-an-hour fastball is just throwing junk, and trying to, get people to chase and stuff. Like, becoming that guy that draws charges, who's diving on the floor, making hustle plays. So credit to him for completely evolving his game to remain someone who could continue to play in this league at this level. If we're not going to do initially I was for once every 5 game sort of thing. However, I do think Joe could from time to time, or could have from time to time throughout the season, when he saw effort waning, have gone with his all-effort lineup for spurts at different times to light a fire under everyone. So I will say that's something he didn't do enough of, which is these guys are playing like ass, and they're not giving me what I want. And part of it was maybe Joe's just reluctance to accept that it was an effort thing ever. It always was about execution and shots and X, Y, and Z. But there's just some time where, the type of shot that you're taking, while in Joe's book might be a good shot, was a lazy one. They weren't working for it. They weren't, sticking to what they do and moving and passing quick and staying focused. Olay defense, not really great. So yes, maybe there you could have gone to all energy or all never mail it in lineups like White, Brogdon, Pritchard, Blake, or guys who you're like, I put these guys out here. I might not be the most talented 5, but I will not question that they're going to be going for it for me. And maybe these other guys will wake up a little bit. Could have maybe done that. Playoffs, though, I just don't think you have that luxury to risk putting a guy like Blake in there and just having him be overwhelmed by superior competition for meaningful minutes. So you got to be pretty careful about how you manage those types of minutes there. But I could still see putting him in there for a little bit of like an energy boost if you felt you were lacking it in one game, in a couple of games.
Yeah. And go ahead, Jimmy.
That would help some of Sherrod's trust issues with the team not showing. If you're worried about the team not showing up one of these nights, like to what John said, like you could put in Blake for a minute, Pritchard for whatever. Those are the guys that kind of give you that instant energy sort of off the bench. I'm not saying, again, I've made it very clear, I'm not saying he's going to be getting 25 minutes a game in the playoffs, but I do think that there is a time and a place for him a little bit more often than maybe other people.
I can see that. Because he what Blake does when he gets on the floor, it reminds me a little bit of what the Lakers head coach Darvin Ham used to do in Detroit. Darvin didn't play major minutes, but when he played, his job was just to bring energy. Hustle, dive for loose balls, do all the intangible things on nights when that just wasn't there, that you needed someone to kind of jumpstart the team to play better and to play with more energy and effort. And Blake does have that in him. But again, you're not going to necessarily need that every night or most nights for that matter. But you, as a coach, you have to have just that almost that gut instinct to know when you do need it, when your team needs to have that type of presence. You don't typically need that much in the playoffs because guys are pretty amped up as it is. But to John's point, I think that there were a number of games where you could have seen Blake in there for 2, 3, 4 minute stint, just mix it up a little bit, just to jolt the team and maybe jolt the opponent a little bit as well. That just didn't really happen. So.
Yep. So again, they got what they needed tonight. which is cool, and they needed it because he did provide the rebounding. Utah was getting them, was getting pretty much whatever they needed down low. I mean, you really just don't. I mean, you really have nothing behind Allen Robb. It's a real struggle. So naturally, you need those guys healthy in the playoffs.
Well, that's my concern when we talk about depth. Like, I don't think I'm as high on the depth as you guys are.
What's your big concern with the depth, Jimmy?
Literally that, like the number.
But is there a position?
But it's not that, Jimmy. There's 3 guys coming off the bench. There's 2 and 3 guys coming off the bench that are starter quality or have started for you.
Right. Rob Brogdon,
and so I mean that's the thing. Is like so that it's as you said, it's not the 1 through 10 depth. It's the quality of those guys being
it's kind
starter.
Of a fall off
Some people aren't starting guys as good as the 3 guys you're bringing off the bench in the playoffs right now. PJ Tucker is starting. Right.
Well, because Brogdon's obviously starter quality. I mean, guy could be 6th man of the year. Probably should be if you're just keeping it to actual bench guys. He's definitely 6th man of the year. I know Quickly is kind of jumped over him, but he's starting a lot. So I don't really understand how the voting works in that sense. But not to get off on a tangent, but you're right. I mean, they do have the 6 through 8 is talented for sure. It's just, again, it goes down. I guess it comes back to consistency, but you have gotten consistency out of Brogdon. But my concern, 6 through 8, you guys are just assuming the best version of Grant and the best version of Rob. Like, that's kind of where my concerns lie, is that we haven't gotten that on a consistent basis this year. So that's where my concerns are when we talk about that.
Look, I mean, the reality is this, like, it's not, again, sure, but if you've got 7 guys who are starter quality and Grant's your biggest problem is the 8, Grant was your best player coming off the bench last year. You know what I mean? If he's the worst guy at the end of your rotation playing 15, you can't go much deeper than 8. The minutes don't exist. If you have 9 guys who are starter caliber, you're going to have 2 or 3 pissed off guys on your team that are playing 13, 14 minutes a game and feel that they should be getting closer to 30. So, like, you really can't have more than 8 quality players on your team who are playing legitimate minutes and keep everybody satisfied. See the Terry Rozier, Marcus Morris, Grant Hayward, Gordon Hayward year of like how hard it was to keep people happy when you've got that many good players. Bring in Bobby. This may also mark my exit. Is Josue coming soon?
Yeah, he's setting up.
Okay.
What up, Bobby?
Guys, I'm gonna bail. Goodbye.
Oh, all right, John. Hey,
I got nothing left. Jimmy, host as long as you can, and then hand it over.
I got a few minutes left. I'll say hi to Josue.
Sure. Yeah, I'm gonna leave as soon as Josue. We're just tagging in and out. I'm waiting for Josue to set up.
All right, look at this.
This is Bobby.
Cool new method.
What's your method?
We're subbing each other out. This is like
Oh, we're subbing each other out. Well, John's playing hurt. John's playing hurt tonight.
I know, but I was on the plane with you guys when we got delayed and said, you know what, I'm going to tough it out with you, which is what Tatum said a short while ago. He wasn't going to play. They got delayed. They were all hanging out talking, and he's like, you know what, I'm playing.
Yeah,
I'm gonna do
because he wanted to suffer like they had to.
Yeah,
and I love. Everybody, Jimmy, volunteers the whole story. Tatum's yelling it across the locker room, giving a speech. And Joe comes out pregame and pretends it didn't happen. I still don't get that.
Yeah.
I don't get that at all.
The messages are a little
it's
mixed.
Crazy.
Here,
look at this. It's a party. Josue, give the thumbs up when you got it.
Well, Bobby, if they lost, nobody would have wanted to talk about that being an excuse, but since they won,
let's talk about it.
Well, we won. Yeah, we won despite the fact that we even had to,
look at this. 5 of us.
Wow, 5 box. What did they call that?
2-3 zone.
Ooh, I like that.
2-3 zone. That's right.
Well done, Sherrod.
Very
okay.
Well done.
What's 5 minus 1?
Wow.
4. Yeah. He already.
I just wanted to say hi.
He can't leave. He's never going.
Well, I'm waiting for Tim to acknowledge that he knows I'm leaving and will manage the stream.
Are you,
Tim? I need you to respond.
What do you mean manage the stream?
Are you under the weather, John?
I'll say end stream.
Tim, I need you to respond on the thread.
John, I will end the stream, or Bobby will end the stream.
I know, but there's lower thirds, there's chat, there's a lot. Jimmy, this is not an easy job.
Jimmy's gonna go into
Okay,
post mode.
I did it yesterday.
Okay,
I know what
Jimmy,
it
you're in
is.
charge.
I
Bye.
did the whole damn thing.
Jimmy turns into like
but
a.
you're saying
guy.
you're leaving too.
Get this
Sherrod is leaving.
guy out. Yeah, I will. If I
Sherrod
can
is
get a couple
leaving?
words in.
Yes.
All right, Sherrod's leaving.
All right, let's
John's
get it.
leaving. All right, Sherrod, any final words, Sherrod? Okay, perfect.
Yo,
perfect.
dude steals my.
These
do you know to
boomers-
put the graphic?
Get these
do you
boomers
know to
Dude
put
out
the
of
steals
here.
my
graphic up?
spot.
I know how to
And
get
then
you
he
out of
leaves.
here.
Do
See
you
ya.
know where the 3-person graphic is? Do you know?
The what?
Exactly.
The 3-person graphic.
Exactly.
The what?
The 3-person graphic. It's not there.
John, you might as well just stay.
What 3-person graphic?
No,
This is the
it's
3-person
not.
graphic.
It's this
It
one.
was last night.
John's like that dude who doesn't want to leave the party, but he's like, this party, it's gonna be nothing when I leave.
What did he do? What did he didn't do anything
You see
different.
that logo down there?
Oh God, it's still low.
This is
Oh my
great
God, dude.
podcasting.
Get this guy out of here. This guy's really gonna talk about whether or not the logo shows. Still
How
staring at.
long have you guys been doing this?
All right, let's just
Was
reset.
this like the last 20 minutes?
Let's just reset. This is the kids' table at Thanksgiving now.
Sherrod's
Bobby,
ready to
Josue, live from TD Garden tonight. Bobby, we'll start with you because you came on first.
Where you going, Sherrod?
We'll start with you, Bobby. Give us something from tonight's game that stuck out to you. Let's reel it back in for a second, folks.
I thought Tatum was awesome in this one, and I feel like we haven't said that in a little while. I think last night, of course, you guys had on just a ridiculous scoring game for him, but he was doing everything again in this game, and I thought a play Josue pointed out exemplified that late, where he saves that ball from going out of bounds at midcourt and fires it back to Smart to run out the clock. But it started with him passing out of double teams, and that was one of the bigger deals last time these two teams played, Jimmy. Jazz double teamed him every time. They want to get the ball out of his hands. He only took 12 shots in that game, and he played terribly. In this one, right from play one, he fires it to White. White gets that floater after Olynyk came over and doubled him, and you saw that all night. He got off the ball. He still found a way to score 39 points while getting doubled pretty much every time, and he managed it perfectly, I thought. Great game from him. Of course, the back-to-back, all the heavy lifting he did last night. That impresses me too. And then, of course, what John said before he left, that he wasn't supposed to play in this game. 39, 11, 3 and 3, 12 of 17, made the most of limited opportunities. He said pretty much every time he had space, he had to let it go because he knew the doubles were coming. And he had a great game in spite of all the attention he got here. And the Jazz did it so well last time that I got to give him a ton of credit for how well he handled it this time.
Yeah, no question, Bobby. I mean, going into this one, that was the first thing I was looking for, to see how he would bounce back. Because if you're Will Hardy, you don't change that game plan considering what happened last time these two teams met. So, yeah, like you said, man, he not only kept fighting throughout the second half of possessions, but he also kept going to the rim, kept getting to the free throw line. I mean, that was sort of the way he established his point of his attack in that first quarter. And then he just kept fighting, and all of a sudden, you see him put up a 30 plus point game. With essentially every possession, he was being double teamed. I mean, that's just not easy. As Blake Griffin talked about, after this game, and how incredible he is, and how he's grown, as a player, as a scorer, considering how he used to handle double teams, especially when teams are doing it at an elite level, like Utah did last time. Got to give him credit on that part. But he bounced back, and that's exactly what you want to see. And this is exactly why I'm happy he did play tonight. Maybe the whole getting in late was a blessing in disguise, because that stuff goes a long way, if you ask me. Because not only did he play when it was optional, but the smart approach to the game, at this point of the year, I think is relevant, especially when you see how everyone else responded.
So just to be clear, he wasn't going to play tonight, but because
it was optional.
Of the whole,
it was optional.
Right. Okay. So it was optional, and maybe he was leaning towards not, but he wanted, as a kind of like a unity thing. He wanted.
Yeah,
to
I mean,
play.
he told us this is the first time he's done that on the second night of a back-to-back, where you land the same day, as game day, and getting him out of his comfort zone and seeing him respond that way is what I take away from it. Sure, it's the Utah Jazz. Sure, they didn't have their all-star, in this game, but the coverage didn't change all that much when you think about what happened, a couple weeks ago in Utah.
Yeah, and this has only happened, Jimmy. I was looking at Grandy's tweet 6 times, right, since 2001 that they've traveled the same day they've played.
Wow.
And they're now 4-2 in those situations, which is pretty good.
Okay.
Happened in 02, 03, 08, 2012, and the last time it happened was 2014. So it's pretty rare.
So different rosters, so completely different crew. And I think Grant Williams mentioned, I heard pregame, he said that he actually did it. Was it last year he had to do it?
Because 2 years ago during the
years.
COVID season. He cleared COVID and flew to Minnesota and played that day. So
he
said, I'm pretty much probably the only one who's done this. And
again,
is it
these guys aren't flying coach. Let's not get too crazy here. All right?
Let's get back to isn't it crazy, Jimmy?
Yeah, you don't know. Maybe someone got the middle seat. Yeah, I don't know. You don't know how comfortable Tatum was.
Jimmy, isn't it crazy after we were sitting here and talking about traffic on Tuesday? We're not talking about a delayed flight coming in 6 hours before the game. I mean, this is what I said on Tuesday. It's not like the bus got. It's not like the bus got to the arena at 6:55 and the ball went up right as they were running on the court.
Right.
They got to Boston 6 hours before the game. I know it's not typical. I know these guys are very routine oriented as professionals, but it's not massive adversity.
But it's like you said, it's different. You know, you're a little bit time zone. Probably doesn't really matter, but just getting off the flight, probably didn't sleep well. Probably were on the
here's the thing, they went
for a while.
They did go on the runway for 25 minutes, got off, went back.
25 whole minutes.
Yeah,
I know people stuck on the runway for 3 hours before they can get off the flight. So
that's my worst nightmare.
Let's move on first. I want to move on. You guys mentioned earlier that Blake spoke.
I flew today, by the way.
Look at that. See, you flew today?
Mm-hmm. From Washington.
Oh, that's where you were yesterday?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's all adding up. Birthday Bobby.
Why did you say it like that? Like you were in trouble.
I just couldn't figure out I couldn't get.
No, not you, Bobby. He was like, yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if he missed his flight or something. I don't know.
It's another story for another day.
Yeah, it's a story for another day. We won't say anything more about that. But I want to talk about Blake. I know that if you're watching this show, we've definitely filled our Blake quota, but you guys haven't got anything in on Blake. You mentioned that he spoke after the game. 1, what did he have to say? And 2, thoughts on his performance tonight. 3, do you see a role for him in the playoffs? Start with Josue, since Bobby got first.
Josue loves Blake.
I know, I do.
Good.
But what's your first 2 questions?
What did he have to say after the game? And what did you think of him tonight?
He kept it short and sweet after the game. Just talking about his newfound role, obviously getting into it with guys last night. Same thing happened tonight, and he's prepared to take on that role and not only purposely get under people's skin, but be productive, protect the rim. Be that leader in the locker room that he's been all year long. So he talked a little bit about that. It was a really, really brief press conference, but yeah, I mean, I love that stuff. And what was your second question again?
How did he play? What do you think? How do you think he played tonight? And basically, is there a role for him? Do you guys?
Yeah, I mean that's the last question I remember. Yeah, the role I think is big. Especially because these guys they want to compete when he's out there, when he's taking charges, when he's getting that opportunity. So I do think there will be games throughout the postseason where he's gonna be, his name will be called. Whether it's guys in foul trouble, whether it's a night that maybe Rob can't make it. I mean, I think those are the type of situations. I don't think it'll be like an everyday thing, but he's ready for that type of role. I mean, he's been doing that all year long, and he's succeeded at. He's excelling right now, especially when you think about how his teammates respond to that. So yeah, I mean, I think so. I really do. I don't think it'll be everyday minutes. I don't think he'll play every single game, but I do think you will see him, 1 or 2 games per series. Maybe even more depending on the circumstances, and hopefully that's not the case. Rob having to miss more than a couple of games throughout one series, that's one way we'll definitely see Blake. But I also think that in certain matchups, if guys don't have it in the front court and guys are in foul trouble, it wouldn't shock me to see Mazzulla turn to him for 7 to 10 minutes and throughout the postseason.
Yeah, it won't be a major role for sure, especially if Rob and Al are healthy. He won't play at all. Though, as you said, Josue, injuries, foul trouble, even a big deficit in a game, you could see him coming in to provide a spark possibly. This thought went through my head, of course, during the game, Jimmy. I texted it, and then almost felt like 2 seconds later, he caught the ball underneath, had a wide open lane, and stopped and kicked it back out. There's moments where you see how physically limited he is, and how that impacts him offensively is pretty substantial at this point. But I'm so impressed. Every time he's called on, it feels like he plays well. He does things from a mental standpoint, a feel standpoint, that allow him to be effective in spite of not making shots, as you see here tonight. And not moving well at this point in his career, as you can see. He was walking out of the presser actually kind of like grabbing his midsection, like just in pain.
From that charge that he took?
Yeah, because he's out there taking charges every time and just falling on the ground as hard as he can. It's stunning to me that this, when we watch him, is Blake Griffin, considering what he looked like early in his career, in his prime. But it's a testament to how he's stayed relevant and how he's adjusted his game, that he can come in and play well in these situations. So I don't think you ideally want to go to him in a playoff setting. But it looks like if he's fresh, he's willing and able to do a lot of the things in the mix for you. So I'm not going to go that far. I think ideally you want to have the two bigs, and that's it, plus Grant. But, man, what a great signing this has been. And I did not like it when it first happened. I thought he was done. He had something to offer, and it's pretty good.
You hated this signing. I remember that.
I won't make you do an apology can, at least not tonight. But maybe if there's another big Blake moment, I might have to make Bobby do apology can for Blake. But
that's the other thing, too. How good he is against Giannis. That's interesting, too. You get in a series like that. They might
Giannis
utilize
and Thanasis, both.
That was so funny last night.
That was pretty funny.
What was that?
Thanasis is like the attack dog on the Bucks. You know, like they just put him in the game. He's just like ready to attack like immediately when he gets out there. I don't expect to see him in the playoffs, so it's probably not a big deal. But you never know what he's going to do from the sidelines. You got to be careful about that.
Well, he's an agitator out there too. I thought he took Utah completely out of the game by getting into it a little bit with different guys out there and just making his presence felt. I thought Utah got super distracted. They were already down 14-15. But once they started playing around with the refs, Will Hardy said that the refs had warned both teams at that point that if anything else happens, they're calling techs, and that's why Dunn ends up out of the game there. So he took advantage of that. Blake didn't commit another tech himself, and I just thought it was a super entertaining effort for him.
Yeah, we talked about Blake. We haven't talked about Grant, but how about this? 13 points, 5 of 6 from the field, 5 boards. This was one of the better Grant Williams games of recent memory. This is a guy that they're going to need. I mean, believe it or not, I mean, he's still – I know that there was points not too far long ago where he wasn't getting any minutes. But once the playoffs roll around, he's going to get some burn for them. So he's going to need to put in performances. I'm not saying he's got to hit a certain threshold of points every night, but he needs to be effective out there on both ends of the court. And it felt like tonight he definitely was.
Yeah, definitely, Jimmy, especially in that third quarter where I felt like the Jazz, they weren't making me nervous, but it was kind of like this thing could get interesting just given how, the way it was going back and forth and how things can swing in those type of momentums. And that's when he made those big plays, especially right after Jason Tatum took a break and getting ready for the fourth quarter, which is exactly, if you're Utah, your time to attack. And they did that. They got it down to about 7 points. And I feel like that's when he made big plays, especially with Brogdon in the mix. And those two guys have to be the anchor of that second unit. Obviously with Rob now, that's his role going into the postseason. But look at the stat line. I mean, this is, give or take, this is, if he's doing this every single night during the postseason, like that's huge. I mean, the Celtics need that. I think we've made that clear all season long, which is why I think he was sort of in that, Joe Mazzulla doghouse for a little bit, because it was like, man, you're better than this. And outside of the shenanigans and him talking to the officials and earning technical fouls, none of that was helping the team. So I still stand by Coach Mazzulla with that decision to sit him. I think it did wake him up, made him realize that, hey, you're not guaranteed a spot on this in this rotation just because of what happened last year. So it's good. And I think Grant's finding his way ever since. He's been finding his way. And this type of production, I'll take this every single night throughout the postseason.
Yeah, you might be right about that. I was worried that they were going to lose him through that stretch, and he might not return from it. You're right, though, Jimmy. This is one of the better games we've seen from him. This month period, I'm looking now, this is only his 4th double-figure scoring game this month. He's had 2 DMPs and a few more limited appearances, 8 minutes against Houston. So he's had as many limited appearances, 3 or 4, as he has double-figure scoring games this month. So this was probably his worst month since 2021, when he wasn't a big part of the rotation at all that year. They needed this bounce back. I thought he was awesome in this game, got on the boards. They went to Mike Muscala and Cornette, as John mentioned in the chat in the first quarter, didn't play Grant. go back to him to start the second, and credit to him for taking advantage of that because he might not have played as much in this game. Still didn't play a ton when we're talking about his old standard there. Still feels like they're mixing, matching, trying some things there. Ultimately, I think you want Grant back at 25, 26, 27 minutes doing all the things he does. Unfortunately, he hasn't done them as often and as consistently into this new year. So he's working his way back for sure. Is it Grant from last year? Still no. Grant from early this year even. You're still seeing him up fake and hesitate in the corner and not get shots off at the level you want to see him unload them at. And I still think that's going to be the next step for him to return to who he was, is getting those shots off and giving them outlets when they pass to the corners and to the wings and all the different spots where Tatum, as we said, to open is getting double teamed from and needs to throw into open space. He needs to make good decisions in those spots or he's going to sit. I think that's what drove Missoula craziest about that run where he blew the game against Milwaukee. There were a handful of other games where he made bad decisions and it cost them. Tonight, big step back in that right direction. Is it Grant yet? Not quite, but it was much, much closer. And his effort on the rebounding, I thought, played a big role in him continuing to play the rest of the way because that's what he was looking for tonight, right, Jimmy? Those boards were killing him, even in the first half tonight.
Yeah, it felt like Utah was up to their old tricks against them on the boards, but they were able to sort of regulate that later on in the game. But yeah, great game by Grant. For Grant perspective, all things being considered, I mean, I think, that's what you want. We're not talking about Grant as a starting player on this team anymore. We're talking about him as a guy who come off the bench as your, seventh or eighth guy off the bench, eighth guy off the bench, or third guy off the bench, but eighth guy in the rotation, I guess, at this point. So
they have their 8-man rotation,
pretty good.
Right?
Yeah, they have their 8-man rotation. You get a little bit of Blake if you need him. You get a little bit of your guy Cornette, Pritchard, if it's for some reason they need to go, with a little sparkiness. But
Pritchard, by the way, re-aggravated that foot, so I don't know.
Okay. So
didn't play yesterday.
Put him on ice there.
Would have gutted it out if he needed to tonight, but yeah, he's back on the ice.
All right, we have some updated standings here after tonight. It looks like Celtics are 1.5 games behind the Bucks and 2.5 games ahead of the Sixers. I know the Bucks and the Sixers play Sunday, which is a big one, and then the Celtics will play the Sixers on Tuesday. They have a couple of days off here.
I'm very relieved by this win because I obviously came into the day frustrated, Jimmy, that they were going to sit Tatum, as it looked like. Didn't love that they sat Horford and Rob given the matchup. I feel like Horford probably could have gutted this one out. Rob, I don't know, but there's 3 days off after this. I don't know why they needed to rest as aggressively as they did here, but fortunately the guys who played stepped up. Tatum stepped up in a big way. But you see tonight, Jimmy, if Tatum didn't play, they'd probably lose this game. So they got very fortunate there. If you lose this, you're 2 games back with 4 to go. You're probably done. Fortunately, if Philly beats Milwaukee, which I think there's a good chance they will on Sunday.
Why do you say that?
I don't know. That matchup looks tough for Milwaukee. I don't know if you caught the last game they played, Jimmy, but the Sixers really handed it to them. It was close. It went down to the wire, but physically they had a tough time dealing with Embiid. Harden's been great for them this year. They have a lot of big wings who can take advantage of other guys on.
Well, let me just stop you then. Let me just stop you because I keep hearing, and maybe it's just John, but I keep hearing how the Celtics are just going to steamroll the Sixers. So on one hand, the Sixers are going to give the Bucks a ton of trouble and possibly beat the Bucks. But then the Celtics are going to steamroll the Sixers. But if the Celtics and the Bucks meet, it's, a toss-up. So which one is it? Are the Sixers for real or are they not for real?
I think the Bucks have fewer bodies to throw at Embiid than the Celtics do, which is a big reason that I think
the Bucks are big. The Bucks have one of the best centers in the NBA.
Yeah.
Possible defensive player of the year.
I don't know why they've struggled in that matchup this year, but they have. And the Celtics have beaten the Sixers every time this year, right? They're undefeated against them. So I think the biggest difference is the amount of guys that the Celtics have in that mix inside. And it's not like they're shutting down Embiid. It's just about wearing him out as the game goes on. And the Celtics have done that more effectively than the Bucks have. But I'll give it to you, Jimmy. I don't want to see them round 2. I think the series will be too long, too physical, and could lead to injuries and wear and tear that would cost the Celtics in the next round against the Bucks. And I think the Bucks would cruise through the Knicks or Cavs. So this is why I really think it's important that they go get that 1 seed. Let the Sixers and the Bucks beat each other up round 2. Maybe the Bucks get through them, but it'll take 6-7 games, I think. And it's not like the Celtics will have an easy time with the Cavs or Knicks, but a much more manageable series, I think, than the 76ers. Mm-hmm. And I don't think, like John says, that the Celtics would steamroll the Sixers. So the way that series has gone in recent years, I can see why he thinks that.
Yeah, but I can see why people feel maybe overly confident for the Celtics going up against the Sixers. I mean, lately, I mean, the Sixers have been playing better. I think that's what's giving people the benefit of the doubt, Jimmy, especially with the way that they played against the Milwaukee Bucks. I mean, with Brook Lopez is interesting because he's such a good defender. He can protect the rim for you. But if you get this team, if you get going offensively and you're running the floor and you got a lot of, guys up front that can knock down 3-point, and he's got to continue to go out there and defend the perimeter, that's when you get the best out of him, right? That's pretty much what we saw a lot of last night, and that was Al Horford doing it, or it was other guys shooting threes. I mean, you get him on a switch, he just doesn't like doing that for 4 quarters. I mean, he'll do it for a little bit, but like in terms of guys that can really get going from behind the arc, he's not gonna, you know what I mean? Not gonna keep up. So I think that's a big part of it as well. But it's just the way it's been always in the NBA, right? It's always been, what have you been doing lately? And right now, that's been the case. I mean, Philly's been giving the Bucks a hard time, and the Celtics, obviously, you think about what happened last night, and that's what's going to be on people's minds. I mean, it's going to be a lot of these NBA players, they have short-term memory, but moving forward, the Bucks still dominant. I mean, they've been that team. They've been the reason why the Celtics haven't regained number one. And if it doesn't happen, I mean, for the most part, the Bucks don't have to worry about the Celtics until they have to, right? The Eastern Conference Final, which is still my prediction. So I don't think either way it changes the Bucks' confidence, especially going into the postseason. But at the same time, in the Philadelphia 76ers, I mean, if they can continue this going into the postseason, sure, they're going to be a threat, but I just don't think they're still on the same plateau as the Celtics and the Bucks. I mean, there's still a significant gap between those two and the rest of the Eastern Conference.
Bucks this year lose 133-130 in that last matchup I mentioned. In November, they lost 110-102, and then late October, they won 90-88 in a close one. So they've had trouble with Philly this year for sure. Those are all close games or losses.
It's Embiid, man. Embiid's different.
And I think the Sixers will win again on Sunday. I didn't get a good deep dive on that game, Jimmy, yesterday.
Okay, because I was actually going to ask you what your opinion was of it, but
so this is the sense I got
busy.
just from the glimpses I saw. The Bucks offense is a little stagnant. It'll go through droughts. It's not ranked highly in the league. In fact, at this point, I think they're still in the bottom half of NBA offenses. They do have a lot of shooting, and of course, Giannis will get his. But in terms of guys who can create for themselves and others, if Holiday's off, and sometimes he is, he's a great player, but he does have off nights.
That was off,
because
sure.
he's more defensively oriented.
Right, but Bobby, when he's off, he is off, right? Like, I think that's the thing. Like,
yes, yeah, that's what I'm saying. So they're 16th in offense now. That's a problem for them. And if they can't get that going, the Celtics are a top 5 defense statistically and are well equipped to guard them. Just play a variety of matchups across the board. Zach Lowe had a pretty good podcast today actually talking about how like the Celtics would just put their guys anywhere. Rob can guard Crowder. Rob can guard, they don't worry about how the matchups go. And if the Bucks try to go small, the Celtics might still stay big against them. So I said this earlier in the year, and I was wrong about it. I thought the Bucks were going to fade because of Middleton's decline, because of Brooks' back, because of their stagnant offense. But that defense played so good, and their offense turned around enough for them to really go on that run of 16 straight wins. But all those problems still exist. Like, was Middleton that impressive to you last night?
No, he wasn't effective really at all.
He's just not the same guy this year. And he's improved quite a bit, but he's not the same. And then you lose Holiday. Who are your guys offensively on that team? It's just Giannis.
They're still doing it's still Giannis 1-on-5 too much on that team, for sure.
Yeah, and he's running into Horford, Grant. Even Rob is a good guy to throw at him. So, listen, I said the Celtics weren't going to lose in round 1 or round 2, despite all their issues they've had over the last couple months, and there's still a lot of things I don't like that they're doing right now. I mean, that Wizards loss was so bad on Tuesday, but if you look at all the teams in the East, they have the fewest flaws. I just think it's in their benefit, Josue, to let the Bucks and Sixers take each other out and not have to deal with that. You know, you can do it the hard way. They did the hard way last year, certainly, but it's not ideal.
Yeah, I agree with that. But, you know, the way this team has been, you know, it's always been more about how they're playing, right? Compared to, they have to get the 1 seed. And a lot of that was what this team was last year, right? When Ime was leading things. So, I mean, as long as they're...
Yeah, but last year, Josue, they were climbing the ladder. So getting to 2 was a massive turnaround. Right. This year, they were by and far 1 and slipped with just all these awful losses.
Well, yeah, I mean, I just like last year, those 2 went hand in hand. But at the same time, though, this year, I just feel like that, granted, the first 2 weeks after the All-Star break, I mean, that was when things were scary, but they're back trending upwards, right? And I think if you're Joe Mazzulla, that's all you can really ask for. I mean, obviously you still want the 1 seed, and if you don't get it, you're going to look back at those losses against, you know, sub 500 teams for sure. But I mean, at this point though, the momentum and health is just way more important for this team, especially for guys like Rob.
What do you think, Jimmy? They need
the 1 seed? No, yeah. I think I've been pretty consistent in that. I don't think they need it. I think it's a nice thing to have, but you don't sell out for it. If you believe that they're as talented as they are, then the possibility of playing an extra road game should not be enough to, you know, go all out, you know, over this next few games leading right into the playoffs. I think you can benefit more by, you know, being smart with the minutes being played. You know, if you have the 2 seed locked up, which they should in a couple of games, then you could, you know, sit a guy or 2 here and there. I think the Celtics are confident, and they just went into Milwaukee and took care of business pretty freaking damn easily. And again, I'm not saying that that's going to mimic a playoff atmosphere, because obviously it won't. The Bucks were coming off a second night of a back-to-back, but they've played the Bucks very well this year in all 3 games. I don't think that they're scared of the Bucks. So with that being said, I don't think that they should feel the need to get the 1 seed. I don't think it's a failure if they don't, or a disappointment if they don't. I think, you know, maybe when it's all over, it might shake out, and they might be kicking themselves for dropping a game or 2 in the regular season that they should have won. But it is what it is at this point, and I think that they're fine in the 2 seed. They'll play the schedule as it comes to them, and talent wins out. You know, if they show up, I think that we all agree that they're the most talented team in the East, and they just need to be consistent in putting that product out there. So that's kind of where I'm at with
By the way, Celtics magic number to clinch 2 is 2.
So they're
right there in terms of clinching 2.
So that means if Philly loses Sunday and then Philly loses to the Celtics, that's it. They would have 3 games to end the year that were essentially meaningless, unless you were chasing that 1 seed. So it really will depend on how Milwaukee does.
Bucks magic number to clinch 1 is 4,
which is a lot. You know, there's like 5 games left.
5 to
go. They obviously, you know, they control their own destiny. I'm sure that they don't want to lose the 1, so they're playing to win games as well. I think their record is a little easier their schedule is a little easier than the Celtics.
They have the Sixers, of course. I think the Raptors, Wizards, Bulls, Grizzlies.
So it's slightly less. Yeah.
A little tricky. I mean, the Celtics have the Raptors twice, the Hawks,
and the Sixers,
who could be locked into their spot maybe, and the Sixers. Meanwhile, Nick Nurse today, did you see that?
What was up with
He's a crybaby, though. What did he say?
He said he's going to have to think about his future after a really hard year. Before tonight's game in Philadelphia, Raptors coach Nick Nurse said he's going to take a few weeks to see where he's at the conclusion of what he called a difficult season for a number of standpoints.
Maybe there's something personal going on that we don't know about. I mean, it's you know, it's a long season. It's tough. You know, you're grinding it out as a head coach. I'm sure it's not as glamorous at all times as we think it is when we see these guys just, you know, on TV and on the sidelines. So if he's got something going on, I'm sure it's serious enough for him to walk away from a job like that. You know, there must be something going on.
I'm excited for those games, by the way.
Host Jimmy is so, like, considerate and nice, but when he's like...
If I'm down where you are, Josue, I'm like, What a little bum.
Suck it up. This
there.
is the time of the year you're supposed to be more focused.
Boo-hoo.
By the way, I'm going down with this ship.
He's thinking about the off season already. What's his
right? Like, are you quitting? What's going on?
It's so true, dude.
And that's such a weird time to say that.
Very odd, especially for a coach who
maybe
has
he's trying to inspire
championship
his
in
guys
his
a
resume.
little bit. Maybe he wants his guys to
rally the troops. Do you guys want to keep
one
me in
last
that?
hurrah. All right, that's it for me. I don't know if you
here-
guys have any final thoughts, but feel free.
Well, I just want to say they're here twice next week.
Oh,
That's probably going to be the last test for my take that they're a
legit.
low-key tough opponent round one. Legit, yeah. Because this, I mean, they.
Who are you going to be reporting for? Will you be covering the Raptors or the Celtics in that one?
Well, remember Schroeder last year to Gary? Are you with us?
Oh yeah,
Are you with them?
I forgot all about that.
It would be a nice little treat to see the Raptors in the playoffs. I just don't think it's
Gary
going
was like,
to happen.
Gary was like, I'm with the Boston Globe, my guy.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan, bro. Like, what?
Yeah. That's funny. All right, final thoughts, guys. Whatever's on the top of your mind. Bobby, we'll start with you.
I'm good. What do you got,
Bobby?
Man, I would say more the same because I did say that last night, but I'm gonna say the same sort of energy from the second unit. Again, I love that third quarter from them, and I don't care who you're playing against. They have to they have to take every opponent as if it's the Bucks, like what we saw yesterday, or any other top tier teams where you see a clear shift in the Celtics' focus when they're playing sub 500 teams compared to when they're playing title contenders. It shouldn't matter, especially at this point of the season. So I just want to see more of that, especially on the road on Tuesday night.
All right, Josue, you said it well. I'm going to co-sign. How about that? You guys got anything going on that we should be on the lookout for? Articles, podcasts, interviews?
Yes, actually.
Shoots?
Brand new episode, Cedric Maxwell podcast. We recorded this weekend, so you can look out for that either Sunday or Monday. Either way, it'll be well before Tuesday's game between the Celtics and 76ers, so that should be fun.
Okay, we love a good Max pod. Bobby, what do you got on? What are you doing tonight?
Boston Sports Journal Saturday piece. Out as always tomorrow. Will Hardy. We talked a long time with him today. I talked to a lot of players who have played for him. Incredible job in Utah, obviously, this year. He was here in Boston last year. I didn't think it was a big enough deal when he left, the fact that he was gone, because he was really good for this team by all accounts last year as their assistant. And he's probably going to come in second behind Mike Brown and Coach of the Year this year. So got a lot of accounts on what he's done for them and for the Celtics and Spurs over the last 10, 12 years here. So it was great to catch up with him and see him here today. He was a really funny pregame press conference.
Yeah, he was.
So we'll have that up on CLNS Media as well.
Nice. Well, then we will look forward to that. And once again, we want to remind everybody that this show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Sign up at FanDuel.com/Boston for $200 in bonus bets when you place your first $5 bet and a $10 deposit.
You know what, Jimmy? You
toss a couple of bets in for instance. Yeah, what's up, Josue?
Another thing too.
No big deal.
I got a Substack now, guys. I think you guys know, but I haven't said anything on the show before. But guys, check it out. I had a great conversation with Mike Gorman earlier this week. It's josuepavon.substack.com. Really good stuff, man. Really cool catching up with Mike. Always cool catching up with the broadcast, the GOAT, the legend, the Celtics legend, Mike Gorman, who had really interesting stuff to say about this year's team and their chances in the postseason. So go check that out.
That's cool because
speaking of broadcasters tonight, Josue, we saw the Jazz radio guy slam the table for a call.
Max called me about it. He was like, "Yeah, he does that. He gets into it."
And it was getting pretty rowdy in here, Jimmy. All the texts flying around, and Max gets up and turns around and said a few words.
Did he? He was like, "Yo."
Oh man, Jimmy, tonight had a little bit of everything, man. We had before halftime, someone in the crowd like just yacked all over like the person in front of them. It was a mess, man. Like security came over. Like, this kid like cleared out the whole row. It was like 5 people that had to be moved. I think 2 of them went home.
Everywhere.
It was insane. Like,
It was projected.
Yeah, literally. And then the second half starts and all that Blake stuff's going on. I'm just like, man, this is a Friday night at the Garden. Like,
wasn't someone after Tatum on the
yes,
bike?
that's right. Tatum gets on the bike and security had to get involved because I don't know if it's the same woman from like the last home game who wouldn't let him go when he fell into the crowd, but the person was trying to touch him and the guy was like, "Can you not touch Tatum, please? He's playing a game here."
Are we sure that she wasn't just on bike watch? Because we have assigned a couple fans to bike watch.
We haven't had a bike watch.
I mean,
in a while.
the person booked it over there.
I needed one tonight.
Wouldn't keep their hands off of Tatum. So I think the security guard was in the right. If you ask me, Jim, I think that was the right move.
Just another night in the TD Garden. That reminds me, I was listening to the JJ Redick podcast. He had Al Horford on. I mentioned this on the last show.
Oh yeah, I got to listen to that.
JJ Redick admitted, as much as he didn't want to, I was actually surprised. He said that Boston fans were the best fans in terms of like making it hard for the opponent to play, or just in terms of just like the atmosphere. He said Boston was number one. He said he hated to admit it, but he said that the Boston fans actually do have some level of effect. So a little toot your own horn if you're a Celtics fan, I guess. Something to think about.
JJ would know better than most players, right? Especially
people got into JJ, man. He played
against the Pierce and Garnett Celtics, and then he played against Tatum and Brown Celtics. He's like, man, this building doesn't change. So yeah, he knows.
He was also like easy pickings. Like people would point him out and they would say,
"Oh man, remember these big on his hair like in 09 when that series?" Yeah. Oh man,
there was so like much a big stuff. Poetry guy, I think too. I don't know. Like, not there's anything wrong with that. Like, it's cool, but like people would just find things to just hate on him for.
He just had that. He got that treatment where he was
something
just
about funny. His face, man. Just want to punch your face.
Just want to lay one of these.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys for the coverage tonight, and we will be back. We got a couple nights off here, but also happy birthday to Bobby.
Yes, sir.
We couldn't say it yesterday because he was out partying, I think, all night, but that's okay. He made it. He made it.
The party continues in Boston, though. Let's go, Bobby.
Yeah. If you see Bobby this weekend out in the town, rumor is he's going to be out in the town tomorrow. So if you see him, make sure you say happy
tonight.
Birthday.
Tomorrow, we need to rest. Yeah, we're gonna rest and then come back
not
tomorrow.
Tonight. Definitely not tonight. All right, boys. You guys be good, and thanks again for everyone watching. We will see you all Tuesday.